Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 3 in CU101 Culinary Foundations. Chef Matthew and I welcome you to another fine live session. And we are excited this week. I just got back from the Yucatan Peninsula. I spent the last week there discovering lots of really cool foods down there. So I am ready to roll and have a great session. How's everybody feeling after weeks 1 and 2? Can we get some thumbs up out there? Yeah, is everybody learning something? Victoria, what about you? You there? Yeah, everybody else? Daniel down there? Patrick? All right, cool. You guys have been doing a very good job at communicating. How many people saw the little video that was sent out earlier today? Did anybody see that? That was sent out through the Moodle message? Keep up the good communication. Make sure that you are talking to myself. If you don't understand the assignment, if you have questions about the assignment, or if you have other life challenges going on. If you have any questions about your particular assignment, the grade you received, or the evaluation that you received, make sure that you reach out and you talk to Chef Matthew. That's what he's there for, and he'll give you a very thorough explanation and get right back to you. And our phone numbers are also listed on the right-hand side of the class page. So, Chef Matthew, I hear that we've got some great assignments this past week, and I'm excited to talk about those in just a moment. How did everybody like the knife cuts this week? Yeah, good? Yeah, Julie's like, yeah. Sarah's up there. Rachel's down there. Yeah, Deborah, what about you? She's running away on me. Deborah, do you like those knife cuts this week? Yeah, cool. Those are knife cuts that you will use in industry. I want everybody to continue to remain focused on the consistency of the knife cuts, the knife grip, and the claw grip. Those are things that you're going to continue to work with for the remainder of your career. Chef Matthew can testify to this. We still practice constantly with our knife grips and our knife cuts. Knife cuts are such a critical element in the restaurant industry. It promotes consistency, cost effectiveness, appearance, cooking times, everything else. So it's a very critical thing that you have to continue to work on. And then the chicken fabrication. How many people like that? Any thumbs up out there? Awesome. Yeah, look at Rachel. She's all happy about that down there. That's cool. It is, Rudy's up there all excited about it. You know what? When I first started cooking, I mean, I ran a resort at one point in time, and we didn't buy any fabricated chicken. We had to fabricate all of our own chickens. That was 5 or 6 cases per day. It's a skill that promotes cost effectiveness. You make so much more money, and that's what we're all about in the restaurant industry, is making money. If nobody has told you this yet, the #1 responsibility of a chef in this industry is to generate profit, right? Regardless of your culinary ability, regardless of how nice you are, regardless of anything else, if you can't generate profit, then what good are you to an owner, right? Or what good are you to a bank if you are the owner? So a lot of these techniques that we are teaching you definitely are aimed at cost effectiveness, and the reason the entire industry does this is because it does generate profit. When it comes to breaking down chickens, you know, we learned, and we're going to learn this week, we take that carcass and then we make stock, and then we saute those chicken breasts, and then we stuff those chicken legs. So we have a lot of different byproducts that come from just that one simple technique. So it's very cost effective in the long run. Knowledge check last week was about sanitation. What'd you guys think about that?
Good.
Yeah? Yeah. Does everybody realize the vast, Rudy's up there, everyone needs to realize the vast importance of that subject, right? It is probably one of the most expensive things to go wrong in a kitchen is poor sanitation. I know, who was it, Andrea up there, that was talking about the test strips earlier before class started. You know, we're not doing that just here in Escoffier. When you are in industry, you will be doing that on a regular basis. And the local inspector will come in and say, hey, you got your test strips? Let me see them. Even if you are just a prep cook, a garde cook, you know, the line chef, whatever the case is. These are all critical things, all critical steps that affect thousands of people on a regular basis. In a hotel, I ran one hotel for a couple of years. We fed close to 4,000 people every 48 hours, right? So if my staff was not properly trained on sanitation techniques and they made one vital mistake, can you imagine the ramifications in a group of 4,000 people that would have? That's huge. So this is why we really send these things home. Chef Matthew, what do you got? What do you think this week?
Well, I thought it was pretty good. I've been surprised by the chicken fabrication, and a lot of students have said that they had a tougher time with the carrots than the chicken. I was like, no way. But yeah, I actually, when I look at some of the pictures, just squaring off that carrot for the paisan, that's probably the toughest cut of the week, wasn't it? I see a lot of nods. Yeah. But it's been looking good. I think, you know, there's been some meat that's been left on the bones. That's unfortunate, but you know, that's what that's going to cost you money, but that's something you got to learn. You got to see it on there and realize that you need to do better, and it's just practice. So I went through that too, cutting chicken, and butchering is something that you get rusty at. So when I go back to cutting chicken after not doing it for a while, I make some mistakes. That's just the way it is.
So could you, how the sanitation issues look this week with sanitation solution? And
it was better than week one, and more people with the test strips, more people with the buckets. Still a couple don't have them, but we're working on that, and we've been flexible because we know, you got to have it to do it. So I saw another pair of feet.
Uh-oh. Did you really?
Yep.
Oh, no. That's a bad habit, people. And the habits that we're developing now here in CU101 are life-affecting habits. And once you get into industry, if you show up to work without wearing shoes, they're going to chase you out that back door. You know, so that's critical. How'd the uniforms look?
They're looking better and better. So pretty much everybody's wearing them, and I'm seeing them throughout all the pictures. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of hats, right?
Yeah, lots of hats.
Good job, everyone. That's fantastic. That gets me excited. You know, everybody's doing that. Are the knife cuts looking consistent?
Yeah, they're getting better. And everybody, after week one, everybody's starting to put all their cuts right up next to the ruler, just like I want them, so I can, so I can measure them. You know, if there's just a cup or a pile on the cutting board, you know, they could be 2-inch by 2-inch squares, and you know, I don't want to misjudge that. So
here's a magical question. How's everybody doing getting their assignments in early?
Pretty good. We had a lot more this week than last week.
Yeah.
I think we were at, they call it OTS, right? On-time submission. I think we had over 65%, something like that.
Getting better.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents, I know we drive this point home, and we talk about this probably a little bit too much. In industry, once you all become executive chefs and you're running your own kitchens or you own your own restaurants, you will learn the value of not waiting till the last minute. Waiting till the last minute, procrastination is the kiss of death in the restaurant industry. So Chef Matthew and I keep talking to you about this. The reason is we want you to develop that habit. If that assignment is due on Tuesday, hey, do it Sunday, right? Kick back Monday, Tuesday. Get ready for the next week. You all are going to learn. You never know what's going to happen in life. You never know who's going to call in sick. You never know who's going to book a large group. You never know which purveyor is not going to deliver something. There's always something to overcome within the restaurant industry. And if you wait till the last minute and procrastinate, you will fall. So we want everybody to start really running ahead of the game on this whole show. Any other comments, Chef Matthew?
No, nothing comes to the top of my head. So
cool. Well, thank you. I think that's awesome. Ladies and gents, I did want to mention one other quick thing before we get rolling on this week, and it's a big week. If anyone is having any type of challenges with Google or any other type of technical challenges, make sure you call 877-224-8576, technical support. Or on the top of the class page, you will see a help tab. And that help tab has a lot of videos in there that will guide you through these challenges. If you have a hard time or any type of challenge getting a hold of technical support, reach out, let us know. We can help you. They get real busy sometimes and they try their best, but sometimes we can help you out and expedite that as well. So don't be afraid to reach out, but make sure you take full advantage of that. For those of you that are still struggling with Google Drive, it gets easier. Within a couple of weeks, it's going to be like riding a bike and you're going to be a rock star on it. So hang in there, ladies and gents. It gets a lot easier. All right, everybody, put on your seatbelts. It's a busy week here in CU101. Let's take a look at our class page this week and see what's going on. Can everybody see that?
Nope.
No.
Ah, there it is.
There it is. All right. Yep. All right, ladies and gents, this is week 3. Once again, I've mentioned this a couple of times. My contact information is right here. Chef Matthew's contact information is right here. And this help tab right up here at the top, if you click on Help Center, you know what? There's all the videos in there about Google Drive, and they're going to help you out. So it'll take care of it. Research materials and your knowledge check. Get that done tonight. At the conclusion of this class, take 15-20 minutes, read that research material, and get your knowledge check done. Remember, that is due this Saturday. We had a number of people that failed to turn it in this week. Those points catch up to you at the end. It can mean the difference between passing and failing the class, and we don't want to put anybody in that predicament. So make sure you get it done early. Just get it out of the way. Thanks for being at the live session tonight, everybody. That's awesome. You're going to get all the valuable information that you need. Once again, if you can't make it, don't forget the live session archive. Discussion board, we're going to talk about here in just a moment. We're going to go through all the specifics on how to do that, since this is our first discussion board. And then down here on our assignments, we have chicken stock, minestrone, and velouté sauce. And we'll talk about those. And then down at the bottom of our class page, if you click on these, this is a help folder that we'll get into in a moment, and then some short videos on how to prepare our dishes this week. We've had a number of inquiries regarding the discussion board. And Chef Matthew.
They call it white stock because a lot of times with making stock, we brown the bones. Who's made stock before? Okay, quite a few of you. Good. See a lot of hands up. Did you make brown stock or white stock? Brown stock, hands up. Both. I see one, both. Yeah, white stock, hands up. Okay, both. A lot of both. Yeah, browning the bones gives it a different taste. As far as white stock goes, it's going to be really dependent on the flavor of the chicken and then the mirepoix that we're going to add. I say the word mirepoix, that's 2 words, and it covers a lot of ground. Who knows what mirepoix is? See a bunch of hands going up. Somebody throw it in the chat. Just put in there what's mirepoix. I'm going to get a bunch of answers, aren't I?
Hopefully.
There we go. Carrot, celery, onion. Carrot, celery, onion. Right on.
Wow.
Carrot, celery, onion. Awesome. Yeah. So 2 little French words means a bunch of stuff. It actually, you could technically include garlic. You could include tomatoes. You could include the sachet or bouquet garni. That could all be included as those 2 words, mirepoix. And Chef, that's kind of my experience with it. Is that what you agree with?
You're right on the money. You nailed it. And you know, we want to work with about a 50% ratio of carrots, 25% celery, 50% onions, 25% carrot, 25% celery. And mirepoix is a term that all of you will hear continuously throughout your career, whether it be a brunoise of mirepoix to do an au sec reduction or a demi reduction, or mirepoix, which is can be a rough cut for stock. or any other numbers of ways. And then I think Chef Matthew did a fantastic job of covering the difference between the colors of the stock, the white stock and the brown stock, which you will run across in various ways. Somebody earlier was asking some questions about white stocks and brown stocks as well. And those are generally how you roast the bones and to what temperature. In the kitchen, stock is referred to as, gold. It's liquid gold, and it's the base for so many of our foods. A lot of times in some kitchens, they like to cut corners by buying chicken base, or they buy chicken powders, which is contains things like HVP and TVP, which is texturized vegetable protein, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, and other chemical additives to that stock. So if you ever pick up one of those things and you read the back of it, you're going to have a big lesson, and you're going to need a dictionary to figure out some of those words. They can be a little bit rough, to say the least. Once you get in the habit of making your own stocks, you're providing a much higher quality level of nutrition for your customers, a much more flavorful product, and a much more cost-effective product in the long run. Stocks, once they are prepared, a lot of times in industry, we'll reduce them, and then we'll freeze them, and then we rehydrate them when we need them, whether we freeze them in ice cube size batches or whether we freeze them in 5-gallon buckets. So it's a lot of stuff. Real quick before we get into the chicken stock too much, and we'll circle back. Did you get a chance to talk about the discussion board too much?
I talked a little bit.
We'll circle back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get back. Just real quick, if there's any vegetarians out there, vegetable stock is very common. It's something we make in the restaurant industry quite a bit. We like to saute our vegetables, hit it with a little bit of vegetable stock at the end, adds a nice little glisten, a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit of nice touch to it. When you make vegetable stock, a lot of us will accumulate vegetable scraps from out the kitchen, and then we only let that simmer for about 45 minutes or so. Vegetable stock is real quick. When you work with beef stock, neck and knuckle bones are the prime, or spine bones are the prime bones to use, and that's got a cooking time of anywhere between 8 and 12 hours. When we make large, big volume batches, we'll let that go for up to 24 hours and continuously straining that product. But this week we are working with chicken stock, and that's got about a 4-hour cook time to it. And what we're trying to do is extract the collagen from the joints and the bone, and then we're also trying to extract the minerals and the vitamins from the mirepoix and from the bones as well. So that's our primary intention, and that's what creates that nice flavor in there. Like it or not, the ideal substance to use for chicken stock, and I highly urge anybody out there, is chicken feet. Chicken feet has a tremendous amount of collagen located within the cartilage and in the bones as well, and you'll get that really nice gelatinous effect to the stock. And so that makes a big difference in the quality at the end. How many of you out there have made stock before? Anyone? And you know, when it cools, it gets that like jiggly, thing like Grandpa's belly, almost like gelatin. And that what that is, that's the collagen that's taken effect in your stock. And we're going to talk here the next few minutes on how to preserve that. Please, this week, plan on using the chicken carcass from last week's exercise. That's about all you're going to need. Then you're going to need mirepoix. And when Chef Matthew and I refer to rough cut, we're talking about just running your knife through the product. It doesn't have to be extremely sized unless our recipe calls for a specific size. But in industry, we'll cut anywhere between 1 inch and 2 inches thick. Because of that long simmering time, we're not too concerned about the actual consistency of the product. So we've got carrots, onion, celery. Some of you, when you go into industry, are going to run into what we call a sachet or a bouquet garni. A sachet or a bouquet garni contains thyme, bay leaf, cracked black pepper, parsley stems, right? And it's traditionally wrapped in cheesecloth and then tied to the side of the stock pot. and that's allowed to simmer in there, and that gives it a lot more of an earthy, richer flavor. Bouquet garni can traditionally just be tied together with the fresh thyme and the parsley. So you'll run into that probably somewhere along the lines in industry somewhere.
Chef,
what's that, Chef Matthew?
Can I interrupt you real quick? Go ahead. Make me co-host again, because when you came back in, it kicked me off. So.
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, about our technicalities this evening. This traditionally doesn't happen, but every now and then technology gets the best of us, doesn't it?
It's kind of like how a curveball makes you grow, makes you do things you didn't normally do, and you just have to roll with it.
There's this funny thing. There's this saying that we have in the restaurant industry, or in the culinary industry, I should say. Failure is not an option. A true chef always makes it happen. And who was telling me that they had to use the knee thing to be able to stand up? Yeah, so somebody was mentioning they were having some pain, and so they were concerned about that. You know what? They're making it happen, and that's all that matters. I love that. So the big difference between stocks and broth. A lot of you, when you shop, you've probably bought the chicken broth before in the can. And what that is, that's probably primarily made from meat scraps and mirepoix. However, stock will be made from the bone and the cartilage and the collagen, which gives it that flavor. So let's take a quick look at our recipe this week, so I can explain in detail about what you're going to be doing. And there we go. Can everyone see that okay?
There it is.
Good. All right, so this is our chicken stock recipe that we're going to be working with this week. It's fairly simple. Make sure that you focus on the recipe this week and only the technique. Do not deviate, because we want to make sure that that you're doing exactly the technique, so you learn it. So you've got your carcass, or you can bone out another chicken, or a lot of times in grocery stores they'll actually sell carcasses if you ask them for it. Like I mentioned a moment ago, the chicken feet are the primary source that we like to work with because of the amount of collagen. If we don't use chicken feet, we like to use chicken wings, because those provide the nice gelatinous effect as well because of the level of collagen. And then you've got your mirepoix right here. It says cut into large pieces. That was the rough cut that I'm referring to. Whenever a chef comes up and says, hey, give me a rough cut, we're just referring to running your knife through that product. It can be inch, inch and a half. It doesn't have to be exact. But make sure you wash and you clean those vegetables real well before they hit your stock. You want to make sure you take care of that. And then these items down here would be the items that are traditionally in a sachet, but you're going to be adding those directly to the stock. So you're going to put your bones and your carcass into the pot. You want a larger, heavier pot, one that's real thick, that's going to insulate real well and hold the heat. You're going to put your bones and water into the pot. You're going to bring it to a boil only for a very short period of time, maybe 30 seconds, and that's it. And then you're going to bring it back down to a simmer. If you allow it to boil for an extended period of time, you will cook the collagen out and you will not get the gelatinous effect. So bring it to a boil only for about 30 seconds, turn it down to a simmer. Once it's at a simmer, you're going to start skimming the top of the stock by taking a ladle and dropping it in and removing the scum from the top, the floating coagulated proteins, the froth at the top, and the excess oil. Keep an empty can or an empty pot right next to the pot that you're cooking your stock in to dispose of that scum. You're going to want to do that every few minutes. This helps create a nice, clear, clean-looking stock that's got nice flavor to it. Then you're going to simmer it for about 4 to 6 hours. After that, you're going to run it through a fine mesh strainer. What we need to see for this exercise is once it is strained, once you are done straining it, you are going to put it into another pot, and then you're going to put it into your sink. Your sink will be filled with ice water, right? So you're going to take the pot, that you strain the stock into. You have the stock in the pot, right? And then you're going to set that into the ice water, and that's going to bring the temperature down quickly. In the restaurant industry, we are constantly concerned about what we call the temperature danger zone, which is about 35 to 140, 40 to 141. It depends on which part of the country you're into, but you need to get your stock out of that area within 4 hours. So you're going to put it into the ice water. You're going to stir it, right? Every couple of minutes. You don't have to stand there and do it, but as you walk by, stand there and stir it. Let it cool down below that 40 degrees, and you need to snap a picture of your thermometer in there so Chef Matthew knows that you got it. After that, you're going to pour it into some glass jars or storage containers that we'll talk about here in just a moment. But then that will be the conclusion of the chicken stock. We have a quick video here tonight that's put together by Chef Luke. I know Chef Matthew missed those videos and he missed the music, so we're going to be cranking that up. This is a quick to give you an idea of exactly how this should work.
This guy's so fast.
I just want to play that part one more time, just because I love that wobble song, you know.
Yeah,
and
that is perfect.
We were talking about Grandpa's belly there just a few minutes ago. That gelatinous shaking effect is extremely critical. And then one part I forgot to mention: when you're in industry as a chef, you're going to be asked to prepare an ice bath quite a bit. They're not telling you to go to the tub and fill it up with ice. An ice bath is that section I was talking about where you put ice into the sink, and then you add just a small amount of water to it, and then you insert your vessel into it to cool your product down quickly. It's extremely critical. In industry, in the professional industry, we use large, what's called stop sticks, and it's not what the police throw underneath your car. It's they're large tubes that are filled with water that we keep in the freezer. They can be anywhere from, you know, small to huge, depending on the size of your stock. And then those frozen tubes will be inserted into the center of the stock, which will cool the product quickly. In industry, when we make stock, we'll do 50 pounds of bones at a time. So we generate 5, 10 to 15 gallons of stock per batch. So we do quite a bit. Anybody?
Jeff,
what's that?
Just a couple things. In the chat, somebody had mentioned the straw in the stock, and that's to vent the center of that stock and help it cool faster. And then also someone asked, Rachel asked, good question, Rachel, by the way, if you're making the soup right away, you don't have to cool the stock. So don't spend 2.5 hours trying to cool the stock off and then heat it back up to make soup.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. However, part of our rubric this week requires you to cool it down. So you are going to have to provide a picture of that, because that's an industry standard, and that's something that we do. However, what they are talking about is absolutely very intelligent, to make the stock and then make the soup right away. So that's very smart.
Yeah. Okay. My bad, Chef. That's right.
Yeah. It's no. It's smart thinking, though. I like people that think that way. That's perfect. This stock, when you're done with it this week, you can go ahead and freeze a portion of it, because you will be using it later on in the course. And like Chef Matthew was just mentioning, you're going to be making minestrone soup and veloute sauce this week as well. So let's move on to our next subject, which is going to be the veloute. How many people know what veloute is? Right? Some of you do out there. Awesome. Who can put into the chat the 5 mother sauces as invented by Auguste Escoffier? Right? Got anything coming up, Chef Matthew?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Mayonnaise, salsa, ketchup, mustard, horseradish. Yeah.
Secret sauce? No.
No. Tartar sauce.
I got a couple. I got 1, 2. I got 3. 4.
Wow.
Waiting on that 5th one.
We got a sharp crowd out there, don't we?
Yeah, this is cool. I'm glad. You know, usually most people have no idea, and then a lot of times beginning students will surprise you. There we go. There's the 5th one. Tomato.
Awesome. Good job. Yeah. So the mother sauces, as originally written by Auguste Escoffier back in the 1800s, pretty much branch off into all other sauces that we make. The 5 mother sauces are hollandaise, tomato, veloute, espagnole, and what's it? Bechamel, right? 5 mother sauces. In your career as a chef, you will work with one or all of those sauces on a frequent basis. Hollandaise sauce. How many people have heard of hollandaise sauce, right? Which we'll be making in this class later on. Hollandaise sauce, one of the mother sauces that branches off into so many other sauces. It's incredible. Chiron, Maltese, Bernaise, right? All those sauces are a branch of that mother sauce. So we need to start getting in the habit of learning the mother sauces, the tomato, veloute, hollandaise, bechamel, espagnole. 5 mother sauces as developed by Auguste Escoffier. Veloute sauce is one of my most favorite sauces because it's so extremely versatile. How many people out there have had pot pie? Chicken pot pie. How many out there? Yeah, quite a few, right? That's made with veloute sauce. What about cream of chicken soup? All the cream soups, a lot of the cream soups are veloute base, right? A lot of our sauces, like lemon caper, etc., that we use on a buffet are veloute base. The reason we like veloute, it's a sturdy sauce that helps insulate food. It's got a lot of flavor. It's very delicious. I like to write it into buffet menus because I know it's going to keep my food nice and warm out there. And it's going to be a good-looking sauce. It is simple at the end of the day. It is, you're going to make a roux, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. You're going to add your mirepoix, then you're going to add your stock, bring it to a boil, simmer it, ice bath it, and you're done. It's that simple. How many people are familiar with roux out there? Right? If you're not, you're going to be, because in the restaurant industry, we use it a lot. There's 7 primary farinaceous thickening agents that we use to thicken liquids, right? We have cornstarch, we have arrowroot, and then roux is one of them. That's what we use to thicken sauces and soups with. Roux is traditionally made with 50% fat and 50% flour by weight, not by volume, right? So you're going to start with half a pound of clarified butter, and then you're going to start with half a pound of flour. You're going to warm your butter up. You're going to stir your flour in and cook it. And then you will add your liquid. And here is a picture of a couple of different roux up here that we use in industry. Mm-hmm. We cook roux to certain different temperatures. And those roux, whether they be brown, blonde, or white, will give the food a different flavor. For example, who's the friend of the Cajun chef Paul Prudhomme? He likes to use a lot of this brown roux in his estouffee and his jambalaya because it gives that rich caramelized flavor to his foods. However, the white roux is something that you would use in a cream of broccoli soup. And then like a blonde roux, which we cook for just a moment longer just to give it a little bit of color, would be great for a veloute because it's going to blend in real well with that stock and not lighten the color of the stock. So how many of you out there have made clarified butter before? Yeah, a couple of you have. Okay, butter, as it is about 80% fat and 20% liquid and solids, right? In order to clarify it, you have to get rid of the liquid and the solids. So basically, all you're going to do is you're going to put your desired amount of butter into a small pot, bring it up to a simmer for about 30, 40 seconds, right? You're going to skim the white off the top, and then you're going to strain it. And you will be left with fat, right? Pure golden fat, which we love to work with in the kitchens. And that will be your fat that you will use for the roux. So let's take a look at our recipe over here this week and see what's going on quickly, hopefully, please. Okay. So our recipe this week for the veloute sauce, it's very simplistic in nature. If you don't have the clarified butter, you can use whole butter for this exercise. We're not gonna make you clarify just 2 ounces of butter, but I do highly recommend that you do learn how to clarify the butter. Clarified butter is great to saute because it raises the smoke point of the product, meaning you can saute at higher temperatures with clarified butter than you can with whole butter, because whole butter burns at very low temperatures, whereas clarified butter will be able to hold a higher temperature and you'll be able to saute nicely in it if you choose to do so. So you're going to take your clarified butter, put it into your pot, add your flour, mix the two. You want to cook them for just a moment or so over low heat until you get that nice smooth texture. It's going to be fairly thick, right? And then after you've cooked that out for about a minute, you want to make sure all the flour gets thoroughly coated by the butter. Then you're going to add your warm stock. Don't add the gelatinous stock to it. You want to bring it up at least to room temperature before you add the stock. And as you're adding the stock to the pot, you're going to be stirring constantly to be working that roux and that stock mixture in together. Then you're going to bring it to a boil. Make sure that you stir consistently. I always recommend using a heavy bottom pot, one that's going to transmit the heat or convey the heat at a nice even temperature so you don't get any hot spots in the bottom of your pot and force it to burn. You're going to reduce it to a simmer after it comes to a boil. Stir, stir, stir. Here, it's got an optional sachet if you choose to do so. If you don't want to do the sachet where you take the cheesecloth, fold it up, tie it off, then you can just add the bay leaf, thyme, peppercorns, and parsley stems directly to the sauce. And then once you are done, you're going to strain it through a fine mesh strainer. And we are going to want to see that go into an ice bath. You're going to strain it into another pot or a plastic container, and then that's going to go into the ice bath. And then we want to see it when it is finished. Now, some of the tricks that you need to learn to work with once you're in industry, when you are done making your veloute sauce traditionally develops a skin over the top of it as it cools. It's kind of a weird looking skin, almost like leather. A lot of cream soups will do that. So what we do in industry, once we've cooled it off, we have it in our container, we'll take butter and we'll pour it over the top. If we're going to keep it warm in a steam table, that'll prevent the air from hitting it and drying. Or we'll take plastic wrap and we'll push it down over the top of the cool product to prevent the air from getting down and drying that product out. And those are essential steps. But just like for the stock, we're going to want to see a picture of that in the ice bath this week. And we're going to want to see that nice and cool, which is very, very important. You can take that sauce, have a great dinner, man. You can saute some broccoli, add that veloute puree. You've got cream or broccoli soup. That's going to rock your world. You can take that veloute sauce. You caramelize some onions. You can toss it in pasta with fresh asparagus spears. You'll be a rock star in your household. You can take that chicken from last week. You can poach it, dice it, mix it with mirepoix, mix it with the veloute sauce. Boom, chicken pot pie. You are a rock star. So those are the opportunities. And guess what we have? Chef Luke is back with a beautiful presentation of veloute sauce. I think he chicken pot pie here. So let's take a look and see what he's got going on.
See, that's whole butter or raw butter there. Doesn't happen that fast, though. Beautiful.
Great job, Chef Luke. Rock the house, man. That's how simple that sauce is. So just make your roux, add your mirepoix, add your stock, bring it to a boil, reduce it to a simmer with your sachet, your bouquet garni, and then let it simmer for a few minutes, stirring consistently, and then strain it into a pot, ice bath it, boom. That sauce will take you a long way in this world. How many people out there have heard of bechamel, which is another mother sauce? Any hands up there? Same technique, except instead of chicken stock, you'll be using milk, and that will create the bechamel sauce, which we will be doing later on. All right, ladies and gents, on to our last dish this week, which is minestrone. Minestrone is a classic soup. Make sure you focus on the technique. That's what we want you to learn to make a broth soup this week. And it is fantastic. How many people out there have made minestrone before? Quite a few of you have, huh? That is awesome because this is a classic recipe. And you will be using the chicken stock that you make. And let's take a quick look at this recipe to see what we have in store here. So the minestrone is a classic broth soup, right? So we have a broth soup. We have cream soups like cream of broccoli, cream of mushroom. That's a cream soup made with a bechamel mixture. Then we have a bisque, which is traditionally made from the shells of a seafood. Shells of shrimp, shells of lobster would be classified as a bisque. Then we have chowders, which are generally a lot lighter, the broth, but it is a milk or a dairy-based broth. So those are some different varieties of soup. But as far as the minestrone, you're going to prepare all of your mise en place, right? Get it done up front, just like everything else. And then you're going to heat your oil in a heavy pot. I always like the heavy pot. They transmit the heat much quicker. If you use real thin pots, the less expensive pots, they create hot spots, and things will stick and burn much easier. Once your oil is hot, you're going to add your mirepoix, your vegetables, the zucchini, the cabbage, everything else, and you're going to saute that. A big trick that we do in the restaurant industry is we always add a little bit of salt to our sauteing vegetables. What that does is it breaks down the vegetable fibers, allows the juices to escape, and helps them caramelize or become translucent much quicker. So you'll save yourself a lot of time. Just a touch of salt, and salt in the kitchen. The only salt we use is kosher salt, right? Because table salt has iodine in it, and kosher salt is a pure salt. It's flaked, it sticks to food better, and it's much healthier for you in the long run. So after you've sauteed your vegetables, we don't want any caramelization on them. We just want them to become translucent and soft. What that means is you'll be able to see through that onion, right? So you'll be able to see what's going on. The carrots will be, they'll change colors, and so will the celery. And then you'll add the tomatoes, stock, and basil, and you're going to bring that to a boil with chicken stock. And then you're going to simmer that for just a couple of minutes. It doesn't need to be cooked for an excessive amount of time. You don't want to kill it by letting it boil for a couple of hours, right? You still want to have some texture to those vegetables. And then this is a key thing that we do in industry when it comes to working with soups. We've all had cream of rice, or we've all had pasta soups and all these other types of things. We do not cook the pasta in the soup, right? We cook the pasta on the side, and then when we have an order for the soup, we take our bowl, we put some pasta into it, and then we ladle the soup over the top of the pasta. So this way, when the guest gets the pasta, it has a nice, fresh, clean, the pasta's still alive, it's still al dente. If you make the pasta in the sauce or in the soup, it's going to overcook. It's going to continue to absorb. Your broth to vegetable ratio is going to decline. And that's the same with rice or any other starch that you put into a soup. So you need to be very, very careful about doing that. So always cook your pasta on the side. And then once you do that, You can add your pasta. You're going to cook the pasta on the side. This recipe calls for you to cook it. In the actual recipe, we're not going to gig you if you cook it in the actual soup, but I recommend learning how to do it on the side. Then you're going to add the beans, return the soup to a boil, and then the parsley. At the very end, we season. We don't season in the beginning because of the fact it's a lot easier to add a little bit more salt than it is to take a little bit more salt out. And you don't learn that lesson until it happens, right? Isn't that right, Chef Matthew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, one thing on the beans, some people like to be purists and go get the dry beans and cook them. My rule on beans is you cook beans in water for 1 hour to 1.5 until they're completely soft, and then you do something else with them. Because if they get anywhere near salt, they're going to take a lot longer to soften.
Yep.
So if you're going to do dry beans for this, cook them separately in water and make sure they are cooked all the absolute way soft before you add them to the soup.
100%, Chef Matthew. You're right on the money about that. Yeah, the pasta, the beans, starches in soups continue to absorb, right? You know, it's like putting a kid in a candy store. It's going to continue to eat the candy until it's all gone. So if you put the pasta or the beans into the soup, it's going to continue to absorb that liquid. Beans and pasta are what we refer to as being farinaceous items. They continue to absorb liquid, and we don't want that. And then here you can garnish the soup however you like. We don't want to get too much into garnishes yet. Primarily, we want you to focus on techniques. However, if you do choose to garnish it, a little Parmesan cheese over the top or some chopped parsley goes very well. You always want to serve something that's very applicable to what you're eating. Don't garnish it with grilled jalapenos, chopped green onions, just stuff that is in the soup that makes complete sense. So, and then one standard rule of thumb when we're working with soups, you always want to make sure whatever you put into that bowl of soup fits under your spoon, right? I've seen people do like huge things of broccoli and all these other things, and customers can't get them into their mouth, and they're and it's got to fit on your spoon so it fits in your mouth nice and easily. You want to put your guests and your customers into a very good position when they're eating your food, so be conscientious of that. This soup calls for dallalita pasta, which is a shape of pasta commonly used in minestrone soup. Don't worry about finding that specific pasta. You can use any type of elbow macaroni, would work just fine, or whatever kind of pasta. Any kind of short tubular pasta that you have will be perfectly acceptable, as well as the cannellini beans. If you have navy white beans, if that's all you can find, that's perfectly fine as well. Chef Matthew will let you go. So quickly, because we're almost at the end of class, we want to go back to our discussion board. Quickly. So our discussion board begins this week. You will have to participate. It's a requirement. A lot of students have challenges because they don't take it too seriously, but it's worth 10 points each week. Over the next 9 weeks or so, that's going to accumulate to be quite a bit of part of your grade, so make sure you do it on a regular basis. The discussion board. You are required to make your first initial post into the discussion board no later than Saturday of each week. Initial post of the discussion board no later than Saturday of each week. At that point, you are required to respond to 2 other people's posts. You are to comment on them, and those are worth 2 points each, right? Your initial post is worth 6 points. The following 2 posts or 2 responses are worth 2 points each for a total of 10 points. So, initial post is due by Saturday of each week, and then the 2 responses are due by Tuesday night of each week for a total of 10 points. 6 points for the initial, and then 2 points for each required post. Does everybody understand that? Any questions about that? Okay, let's take a look at our first discussion board. We don't have discussion boards every week, and we will be talking about it in class when we do. So our discussion board this week. What you are required to do is you are going to watch the sanitation mistakes video. The sanitation mistakes video is a 360 video, meaning you can move your mouse and you can check out this guy's entire house up and down, left and right. And you're going to be checking for sanitation mistakes. We don't want to give anything away now, do we, Chef Matthew, about when he feeds his dog with his hands or anything like that? But
or wipes his face, or I mean, yeah, the guy's a pig. So
yeah, basically. And then some of you will be a little bit grossed out following that. But what you're going to do is you are going to decide what is the worst mistake he makes in the video. The video is only about 2 or 3 minutes long. It's not much to watch. So you're going to decide which mistake is the worst. In your initial post, you're going to click on here and you're going to click on the red button. You are going to post about what you think is the worst mistake and why, right? Do not post a 2-sentence post, right? I noticed that he did not wash his hands after feeding the dog. This was a spread of potential of no writing. You needed to write in detail about what you thought and why you think it is the biggest mistake. Following that, once you've put your initial post in there, you're going to take a look at other people's posts and you're going to hit reply. And then you're going to reply to their post saying, yeah, you know what, that's true. I agree with what you were saying. That is a horrible habit. It could potentially affect quite a few people. So does that make sense? All right, ladies and gents, let's take a few questions here. Oh, you know what we didn't do?
What?
Did we watch Chef Luke's, we forgot his minestrone video. Did we watch that? No.
No.
Oh my gosh, that's offensive. Let's watch that real quick. It's only 15 seconds.
I like offensive video. That's good.
This is so. I love Chef Luke, man. He's got something. I love his choice of music. It just makes my day, right? That is so cool. But ladies and gents, that's the minestrone soup in a nutshell. Before we get to answering questions, there's quite a few hands up. I just want to take a look, quick gander at our class page or our assignment page to make sure everybody understands what the actual assignment is this week. We talked about the fact we have a knowledge check. We also talked about the fact the discussion board. I think we covered that in pretty good detail. The stock recipe we talked about. It's the same standard self-identification photo, sanitation bucket, proper mise en place. You need that for all 3 recipes. And then you need to have your stock pot with bones, stock pot with water, mirepoix, sachet, simmering stock being skimmed. That's where we take the stuff off the top and dispose of it, right? Now feed it to the dog if you choose. And then finished stock with clear or little or no fat, and then the cooled stock. So the cooled stock is going to be sitting in the ice bath. You're going to put your thermometer in there, and then you're going to click, right? Minestrone soup, proper mise en place. Remember, all ingredients should be ready for production. I forgot to mention all the mirepoix needs to be cut into a small dice, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, right? And Chef Matthew will be looking for the ruler, which is important. You're going to have a close-up picture of that, and then pictures of the vegetables sweating in the pot, simmering soup, close-up on the final product in the bowl. Velouté sauce, you're going to make your roux, take a picture. You're going to add your chicken stock, take a picture, and then you're going to spoon showing nappe consistency. Nappe consistency is when we put the spoon into the pot, and then you run your finger down the backside of the spoon, and the sauce stays spread. Okay? Nappe is a term that you will hear quite a bit in the restaurant industry. And then quickly, since we are here, the narrative sheet is required this week as well. And you need to answer this as thoroughly as possible. This week, you will be tasting food. All of the questions on here are applicable, okay? In order to provide a thorough, reasonable explanation of some of these questions, simply click on the flavor wheel, right? And it's gonna help you decide how to describe these terms. I know this seems a little bit, doesn't seem like it has a lot of fruit to it, but you know what? Once you're in industry as an executive chef, you're going to be describing food all day long. You need to learn how to do it appropriately. Terms such as good, sweet, oh, it's nice. Yeah, those do not work. Those are not sellable terms. So you need to learn how to begin doing this, right? So let's take a look and answer a couple of questions here as we wrap up tonight. Chef Matthew, you want to answer? Click on the first person there.
Let's see, Amber.
Amber, what's going on, Amber?
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I got a question. Obviously, what if we don't like zucchini in the soup? Like,
that is a great question, because you know what? For the remainder of your career, you are going to be cooking foods that you don't necessarily care for. However, you still need to learn how to cook them. So I highly recommend that you put the zucchini in there and you learn how to work with it, so you have experience and you learn the technique. And you might find that you really like it under this in this application. There are foods that I don't care for that I try to steer away from. However, I still have to cook them and I still have to learn how to work with them. So it's very, very important. Does that make sense, Amber?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. What's the next question? Jeffrey, what's up, man?
Hey, Chef. I've got actually a couple questions. Obviously, on the chicken stock, I'm just going to portion them off according to each recipe I'm going to use. But in the restaurant, this is more for industry. In the restaurant, how do restaurants keep those when they keep them out? Because I use chicken stock to grow petri dishes when I was doing biochem work. How do they keep that from growing funky stuff sitting in a kitchen in a restaurant?
Okay, so what we do, that's the reason it's got to get into that ice bath. Sure. What we call the TDZ, which is the temperature danger zone, sure. Generically that's between 40 and 140 degrees.
Sure.
Anything in between there, the bacteria will begin to double about every 20 minutes, right? So that's why we're teaching you guys to put it in the ice bath, stir it, get it down below 40 degrees within a quick period of time. That reduces the chance of any type of bacteria growing. At that point, it goes into refrigeration, where we keep it for about 7 days maximum. However, if it does have to go beyond that point, we bring it back out. We'll bring it to a boil, kill all the bacteria, and then chill it back down extremely quickly.
Okay. Or
we put it into our freezer, and when you freeze stocks and other broths like to swell when they freeze. Okay. So if you put them into a container with a lid, you're going to have to leave, approximately 25% of that container empty, because as that stock swells, it'll push the lid off.
Okay. So you're constantly freezing as you build the stock. So obviously it'd be better to make smaller portions.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
And then, for example, in when we're working with them on the hotline, and I know that I'm going to go through 10 gallons tonight. I keep 10 gallons in the Bain Maria. Bain Maria is a large, I've worked with Bain Marias that are 6 feet by 8 feet. I mean, or they could be as small as 2 feet by 3 feet. Keep that food at about 140 degrees to prevent any type of bacteria growing.
Gotcha. So you keep it up at 100. Okay, that makes sense. I was just wondering, because naturally, we're going to use, but how do you store it in a restaurant to be used throughout the night or through the several courses?
Right.
You're not going back. All right. That was my first question. The second question I had is on the flavor wheel. Do you guys have like each flavor so that we can understand naturally where a chef, they can say this is I know what sweet is, I know what sour is, but do you guys have a list of product that we can get that will tie in with that flavor wheel and that aroma wheel to kind of help us build our palate?
Okay, the way this works, like Candace down there, she's all excited. Okay, the human tongue recognizes about 5 basic flavors. Okay, and in the center of that wheel, the 5 basic flavors: sweet, bitter, salty, sour, and then one other one, I forget what it was. Umami, savory. And from that branch all other flavors. Okay. So when you taste a peach, for example, right, you taste sweet, right? But you need to learn, okay, now you've just recognized the first flavor, but if you think about it, it's also got some acidity into it, right? And then it branches off into other flavors. So it's building different levels, right? So it's like opening, I think you work in the computer industry or someone like, so it's like opening one app that opens another app that leads to another app, Yeah. It's kind of that whole thing.
But is there not can you guys direct us towards, because you use your app technology? I mean, I have a website I can go to, or I have a book that I can say, oh, this is what I need to do. There's certain fruits or things that we need to be purchasing and to try to help us build a baseline, or is this just something that we're going to do? You're going to come back and say you are way off.
No, we're not going to say that you're way off, because a lot of it is your perception of what you've tasted, right?
Okay.
You are the chef. You have created this. This is your artwork, and this is how you describe it.
Okay.
Right? And when you first start out, you're going to be a little rough. But as you progress, you're going to learn how to refine and define what you're tasting.
Okay.
Okay. And it's not something that I can tell you as a teacher, this is what you're going to taste. Right?
I got you.
This is something that you're going to have to interpret on your own and learn how to describe on your own. And that's what makes us chefs. I mean, we're not, McDonald's can't describe anything.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, sure. It tastes good or it doesn't.
Right.
Well, and then the last one was the salting. I mean, I'm a guy, I don't put salt on anything. I never have. And now I'm getting into salting. So to me, probably everything is way over salted, where someone else, is there baselines that we can reference, especially with our stocks and stuff? Like, what is a good level of salt? I mean, do you have a product that we can go to, like a stock that's out there in the market that we should be kind of shooting towards? And I know you're probably going to come back and say, you'll just learn it. But I mean, to me, like I said, I added a little bit of salt to some stock that I made last night just to get used to it, to start doing it. And to me, it was way off. I mean, it seemed like a lot of salt.
Chef Matthew's got this one.
Yeah, never salt your stock. The rule with stock is it's unfinished purposely, because you don't want to add any salt to it, because you may want to reduce it. You may want to intensify the chicken flavor. If I intensify the chicken flavor, I'm going to intensify the salt. So I end up with stock that's twice as salty as soy sauce or something like that. But you want to make sure you never, ever salt stock. And I know what's going to happen. You guys are going to make stock, and then you're going to taste it and go, this tastes horrible. I had to add salt to it. No, you don't add salt, because it's not done. It's not done till you make sauce out of it. It's not done till you make soup out of it. That's when you add salt. So salt is a finishing touch. To me, salt is always the very last thing I add. If I'm trying to make soup taste beautiful, I'm adding herbs, I'm adding lemon juice, I'm adding something else, maybe more garlic, but I'm not adding salt to the very, very end. When I get it, this is pretty good, then I add salt, and it goes, wow.
There's a lot of thought that goes into this. What your question, Jeffrey? There's, for example, as a chef in a hotel, when I'm cooking for an elderly group, I know I'm probably going to go a little bit heavier on the sodium side because taste buds decline after the age of 40. So I know they're going to be looking for a little bit more punch in their food. However, if I'm cooking for a group of millennials, I'm probably going to pull my source of sodium from an acid such as lemon or lime, or a soy or a tamari, instead of adding salt directly. So I hate to give you this answer, but this is something that we learn through feel. right?
Definitely.
And you as a person will know what is salty or not salty. And as well, this discussion board, you're going to start hearing a lot of criticism about some of the things that you say. Not criticism in a bad way, but good constructive stuff.
Yeah.
And we have to learn how to hear our customers say, hey, Chef Jeff, you know, you need a little bit more salt in your food. You know, it's kind of bland. And then you're going to learn, you know, where that is.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, good questions. It takes a lot to answer that, though.
Yeah. I wish I could give you a black and white answer, Jeffrey, but it's just, you know, that is not there. Hey, Monica, what's up?
Hi, Chef.
Hey.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take up as much time, but I have 3 quick questions.
Sure.
When cooling down any item in the kitchen, is it a bad idea, even if it's uncovered, to put something directly hot into the refrigerator? Because I heard you say putting it down to cool it down, putting something in to cool it down, but I have a chef who just puts it directly into something different and puts it directly into the fridge uncovered. I think that it's wrong, but he refused to listen.
There's a couple of different answers to that. Number one, refrigeration, especially large refrigeration units that have very large, powerful condensers. Their primary function is to remove water from the air. And when you put a very hot, steamy product into that, you are making that unit work excessively hard, and the repairs on those units are out of control. And number two, when you put something hot into a cold space, you're going to make everything else in there hot. And that's very unhealthy. So that's why we teach you to work with an ice bath. And then we also teach you to work with the ice stick, the stop stick that we were talking about earlier. You do not put hot product into your refrigerator because you're going to kill the remainder of your food. Food dies from fluctuations in temperature, right?
Right.
And food is your money, right? Everything in your walk-in, that's like your bank. That's cash on your shelf, right? And if you're going to boom, 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 boom with your product.
Okay. My second question is, how do you maintain those stocks, like the hollandaise? Because we make hollandaise for our dishes in the morning for breakfast. So how do you maintain those stocks in the morning during the shift? Do you put them under heat? Do you keep them on it cool? Or because I know the hollandaise tends to separate. So how would you store that?
Okay, that question, Monica, is like opening up Pandora's box. That is something that we argue with the health department constantly. Number one, hollandaise sauce is what we refer to as a TCS food. It's a very temperature sensitive food. Time temperature control for safety is what that term refers to. And it is susceptible to certain foodborne illnesses because those egg yolks obviously have not been brought up to a very high temperature for a long period of time. However, if we do get it too hot, it does break. So what I always recommend is, number one, make sure your level of acidity is appropriate in your hollandaise. That level of acidity will help keep that product safe and deter any type of foodborne illness. Make sure you do not keep it for any longer than 4 hours, right? Anything more than 4 hours, you are in trouble because the health department will allow us to keep food in the danger zone for 4 hours. But if you let it go longer than that, then you are risking problems. Number three, keep it in a warm spot because when you pour it over your poached eggs or whatever you're serving it over, if it's too cold, it's going to break immediately.
Yeah, you can't reheat it either.
Yeah.
Once it gets cold, boom.
Yep.
I've been keeping it kind of under the heat a little bit, which is good. Now, what is the difference between the kosher salt and sea salt? Because I use kosher salt when I'm working and at work, but at home I have Mediterranean sea salt. So what's the difference?
Okay, a lot of kosher salt can be sea salt, can be derived from a lot of different areas. Kosher salt, number one, we like because of the purity of it. And then number two, because it's shaved versus granular. Shaved sticks, granular kind of rolls off to the side. Table salt, right, has iodine in it and all this other crap. We don't want that in our food, right? I don't want to pay $50 for a steak and be served iodine. I want pure flavor. The sea salt and the Mediterranean sea salt and these green sea salts and the pink sea salt and all these other things, they are riding a high wave of marketing. And as far as the actual effect on the quality of your product other than the fact you're paying a lot more money for it? I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people like the sea salts because they have a higher mineral content. So they like it for the health benefit. It's minuscule, but sure, there are more minerals in sea salt or in sea salt than kosher salt. But because kosher salt is purified, you're going to get your best pure flavor out of kosher salt. I use some sea salt. I think it's kind of cool. Like Chef said, it's trendy. I have a Himalayan salt block that I cook shrimp on. I put the block in the oven, get it to 500 degrees, and then pull it out, and I can cook shrimp table side. It's really cool. People go nuts over it, but kosher salt's better.
I think it's a great marketing tool, but like Chef Matthew was saying, the amount of minerals, and like Jeffrey was talking about a minute ago, a lot of us use so little sodium or so little salt in our food. If you're trying to use that as a source for minerals,
yeah,
God help you.
It's that much.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you, Chef.
You're welcome. I hope that gets all your questions.
Yes.
All right, Sharon, what's up?
Questions.
Shoot.
First off, I had to excuse myself for a second. I missed the part about the salt. We don't use salt in our food. One, cardiac issues and all of that. So can we avoid the salt in our recipes when we're doing them at home? I know that if we're in the restaurant, we can't.
Right.
But with our homework and all of that, can we avoid using the salt?
That's perfectly fine. That's not an issue. Just make sure if you do have some type of dietary restriction like that, always stipulate that when you're filling out your weekly assignment. So Chef Matthew is aware of that, and that is not a problem. We don't want anybody getting sick from anything.
Okay.
So.
And then my other one is, and my mother-in-law and I were discussing this earlier. When do you learn to, when you take a bite of something, and most chefs can sit there and go, okay, you've got basil and parsley and all of the different seasonings. When do you get to that point in your life?
Probably well into your next block, which is going to be 121 following this course. You're going to learn to start identifying those different flavors. This narrative sheet is going to change the way you think about food. It does not make sense to you right now. However, once you start thinking about what's on your palate, and I just told you there's 5 flavors on there, you're going to learn to associate those 5 flavors with certain foods. So when you go to a restaurant, for example, and you bite into something, you're going to say, oh my gosh, that's a lovely tarragon accent that's in there, right? Because you're going to learn what these foods, and when you go to prepare your recipes, now that you know what the flavor of the foods are and you can describe them to yourselves, you're going to be able to create much better foods, right?
Okay.
So it's something of skill and experience. The guy that runs McDonald's has no concept of what food tastes like. He can't describe it to you, right? However, we are chefs, right? We create, we design, and a part of being a chef is learning to sell, right? I have to be able to sell my food to my service staff, right? I have to be able to sell my food to my customers. I have to be able to sell the food to myself. And if I can't satisfy those, then I have no business doing what I'm doing. And that's why these flavor wheels and everything else, that's the starting point. That's point 0. You'll grow from there. Right? And the same thing with wines, right? I can, if you give me a glass of Nebbiolo, or if you give me a glass of some type of Chardonnay or Pinot Grigio or something like that, I can pick up all the flavors and I can pretty much describe what it is because I've learned and I've trained myself to be able to do that, and you guys will as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Ladies and gents, as a friendly reminder, reach out, talk to us. We are here to help. Chef Matthew and I are here at your service. Do I hear another question coming through? Does somebody else have one?
James, do you have a question?
I do, Chef. Thank you.
Sure.
What's up, James?
Hey, I got a couple questions for you, Chef. I wrote them down. One, Holden Foods. Hypothetically, let's just say, and I've noticed this since I started this, is you go to a place, let's say they have a breakfast and brunch menu. They make, they just I don't know, they make a stockpile of bacon and they're holding it, you know, into the brunch. How do you fall into the FDZ from there? You know, you're holding that bacon. Obviously, you did a whole bunch. You're not doing it order by order by order. How do you do that? Do you got to keep it at one level? And if you do, how do you not burn it or?
Okay, so what we do in industry, especially for those of us from the hotel industry, we cook a lot of bulk foods and we keep them for extended period of times, right? Bacon, I know you didn't mean bacon, but bacon does not have to be held at a particular temperature. Once bacon is cooked, it can sit out for the next 6 weeks if you choose to leave it out at room temperature, because there's not enough water activity within that product to allow the foodborne bacteria such as Salmonella, botulism, listerosis to grow. However, for example, if we're doing a brunch and I cook 25 pans of red snapper, I need to make sure that I keep that red snapper at a minimum of 160 degrees because it's a temperature control for safety food. So we have large pieces of equipment that are called Queen Marys or Alto Shams that we load this into, and they keep the foods at very specific temperatures for very specific amounts of time.
So how do you hold the humidity to keep it from drying out? Say you're not going to serve this particular portion for 3 hours without drying that out.
Okay, that's a great question. So that's where our levels of experience come into play. I know if I'm going to be holding that red snapper, which is a dry fish, if I know I'm going to be holding it for any length of period of time, it's going to dry out. So number one, I add a liquid to the bottom of the pan. And then number two, I keep it tightly wrapped so it has a nice, warm, humid environment. Bacon, but I want to keep it crispy, right? So I don't want to wrap that up because it's going to still generate some level of humidity in there, and that's going to keep that product nice and moist. Pancakes, for example, or French toast, or any type of cinnamon roll or something like that, I'm going to keep those wrapped up because I don't want to let them dry out. Our holding equipment, Queen Marys or holding ovens, they keep things at specific temperatures that don't allow the foods to dry out.
Okay. And my second question, I'll get with you later and send you a message. I got another that's kind of little, same topic but off topic. But the next one is gas versus electric. You were talking earlier about holding pockets of heat, and you want to just boil for a second and then start to simmer. Electric versus heat, gas heat. Is there a difference? I mean, obviously I see a lot of gas heat kitchens.
Huge. Okay, so in a restaurant, right, we work with our standard size burner is 15,000 BTUs, which is British thermal units, right? And number one, electric is a lot more expensive than gas. And what we deal with in the restaurant industry is what we call recovery time, right? When I add something to a pot, how much time is it going to take to get back to that original heat? So if I'm sauteing a steak, like a steak au poivre or something like that, I get my saute pan very, very hot, and I put my New York strip in there, right? It's going to drop the temperature of the pan. If that temperature stays too low, it's going to force the meat to sweat and dry out. So I need that pan to get back to that really hot temperature extremely quickly. Electric does not have the ability to transmit that heat that quickly to get that steak as hot as I need it, as quickly as I need it. For example, a deep fryer. When you're deep frying French fries, you put it into your 35 pounds of grease at 350 degrees, right? Those French fries are frozen theoretically, so it's going to drop that temperature way down. Electric has a long recovery time because the elements have to get hot. However, when I ignite the gas immediately becomes hot and gets that product hot very, very quickly.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, very much so. Thank you very much.
So recovery time is where it's all at for us.
Makes sense.
So, and electric is very, very expensive. Gas, when you turn it on, it's hot. When you turn it off, it's cold.
Yeah, and right on that, I mean, if you're boiling let's say you're bringing, you're trying to simmer a stock, and you've got your heat cranked up because your stock's cold, and you want to simmer it, not boil it. As soon as it starts to reach that point where it's boiling with gas, you could just back that flame down just a tiny bit, just turn it down just a tiny bit, and hit that perfect simmer. With electricity, you got to turn it down and you got to wait for it to figure out how to cool off to where it'll simmer rather than boil. I mean, gas is instant. So,
And James, those are awesome questions, and thank you for answering those. If anybody has any kind of questions like that are, you know, in relation to culinary, but not necessarily in relation to specifically what we're speaking out, shoot us a message. We're more so than glad to answer. And most likely, Chef Matthew and I have been down that road at one point in time, and we can give you a particular opinion about what you're thinking. So we can certainly help you out. Any other questions out there? Anybody? Ladies and gents, awesome week 3 live session. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing everybody. I hope to speak with everybody over the next week. Talk to you soon.